So today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about retirement readiness, which refers to, I would say, the anywhere from 1 to 3 years prior to your retirement, where it's an important time because you're taking stock of what you have and you're planning for the future, and you want to make sure you get these decisions right? Because it's going to be extremely important to you later on. Now, before I get into this checklist here, there are three questions that I think you should ask yourself to see if you're ready for retirement. And the first question is, have you had enough, right? So have you had enough of your job? Is it too stressful? Is it causing some health and anxiety in your life that is really time to move on? It's the first question is, have you had enough? Now, the second question is, do you have enough, right? So if you were to retire today, what does it look like? And that's where running the cash flow projections can help. Now, the third question is, will you have enough, right? So if something changes down the line, if the stock market goes down, if inflation goes up higher, if there is a health event in your life or your spouse's life, will you have enough to help get you through those times? So those are three good questions that I think to start with when we think about retirement readiness. Have you had enough? Do you have enough? And will you have enough? Now, what I have on my screen here, a little bit more detail, getting to some of the specifics for retirement readiness. Now, this checklist was put together by Christine Benz. And if you know Christine, she is a well-respected journalist with Morningstar. And if you haven't taken a look at some of her articles, I suggest you do. She's really good. She's going to have a book out, How to Retire, where she's interviewed number of different experts in their field about retirement. But here today, I wanted to share with you her checklist and also give you some of my 2 cents on each one of these points. So the first one is project and adjust your expenses, right? So here, I think what she's referring to is looking at your expenses today and seeing what you think will carry over to in retirement. What will your retirement spending look like? And from my experience with my clients, I often find that they end up spending in the first few years of retirement what they're spending pre-retirement, right? So even though their commuting costs may go down, they pick up expenses with renovations around the house, additional travel, vacations, whatever it may be. So but it's a good exercise to go through, not only to project your future budget, but also looking at the types of expenses you have, right? Do you have, what are your essential expenses, things that have to get paid versus things that don't have to get paid, right? Then discretionary expenses. And it's an important differentiation because if we hit a rough patch in the economy, if the investments go down in retirement, and it's good to know that if you need to tighten up your budget, where can you take that from? Those so-called discretionary expenses that aren't mandatory, all right? Now, the second point here is take stock of and maximize your guaranteed sources of income. So prior to retirement, this is a great time to gather up that information. Take a look at your pension, if you have a pension, your spouse has a pension, any other sources of guaranteed income that you might have from a prior employer, whatever it may be. But let's project out into the future what it could look like. Let's take a look at the different options that you have for distribution. So start and put this plan together here, how income's going to happen in retirement. Now, this next point is here, decide whether and how much to annuitize. So if you're the type that feels like you need more predictable income in retirement that you currently have, well, then maybe it's taking a look at your current asset base, your nest egg, and seeing if any of that we need to create more predictable income in retirement, and what are the different ways to do that. So starting to think of these things prior to retirement, right? This next one here is don't rule out doing some type of work. Okay, so I know a lot of people they want to just check out, but it's they might find in retirement that they're bored, right? So maybe doing some legwork prior to retirement with your network, thinking about maybe you can work part-time to reach that age 65 where you can get Medicare. That might be helpful. So and whatever part-time work you can do obviously helps cut down the amount you have to take from your portfolio and can leave that money intact and growing for yourself, your future self. All right, so don't rule that out. Laying a safety net here. Now, this is important, right? And what Christine means here, I believe, is having 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses in cash or cash-like investments, reliable sources of investment that you know that if push comes to shove, you can go to that will be there to help with anything that may go wrong in retirement. So when I look at my clients and we talk about their retirement planning, you know, I often encourage them to create these different buckets. And so it would be a short-term bucket for essential expenses, laying that safety net. And the next bucket would be for the intermediate type of investments. These things might be anywhere from some fixed income instruments to some dividend paying investments, whatever it may be. And then that third bucket might be more of a long-term growth oriented. So the idea being is that you have your short-term bucket for those emergency reserves, the intermediate bucket to replenish the emergency reserves, and then you've got that third bucket there for long-term growth that'll be for the access later on in life. So creating the three buckets in retirement, I think, is a strategy worth taking a look at. Now, this next one here is stay flexible on the withdrawal front. So when it comes to retirement and you take money out of your portfolio, being flexible is important because we can go through some tough patches in the economy. We can go through some really good times in the economy. But in those good times might be a time where you skim some of the profits and add to your intermediate or essential expenses. And then in those rough periods of time where maybe the investments go down, that's a time where maybe we take a little bit less from our portfolio. So it's being flexible on the withdrawal front, I think, is a strategy we're taking a look at to help maximize your portfolio over time. Pay attention to tax matters, right? I'm glad you brought this up because this is important. When you need to take money out of a 401k or an IRA, you're going to have to pay federal taxes and potentially state taxes. So those two taxes can add up and have to take out more money in your retirement. So start thinking of now, today, about what you can do to offset that, and whether it's being smarter about how you invest money tax efficiently, looking at tax loss harvesting that could help you out in the future, where to save tax efficiently and invest, or do Roth conversions make sense and when to do them. So having a strategy for taxes in retirement now is a good time to take a look at that. And this here, right size your portfolio. So I think what Christine means here is your portfolio in retirement may look a little bit different than what it is now in the accumulation phase. And it's because the objectives may be sooner, right? So when you're working and younger, retirement's 10 or 15 years out, that's a different asset allocation than somebody in retirement that might need the money in 3 to 5 years. So you want to make sure your portfolio is right sized to meet your objectives, and you start getting there over time, right? Now, this last one here is important. Give due attention to your estate and portfolio succession. So we don't want to overlook that, and I think a lot of people do. They don't maybe pay enough attention to their beneficiaries on their investment accounts, or contingent beneficiaries, who they are, and how should the money be distributed. So you want to make sure that that plan is up to date, not only for your investments, but for all those potential guaranteed sources of income that you may have as well. So there you have it. A quick look at getting ready for retirement. If you have any questions or want to talk more about how you can get ready for retirement, by all means, reach out to me. Until next time, I'm Michael Alloy, Certified Financial Planner. Thanks for joining me.